Well, thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you, William. A wonderful, wonderful presentation. And I know that we're going to have a lot of people wanting to share, wanting to ask questions, wanting to share their perspective. I just wanted to add one little thing. I have my own story. My mother and father were soulmates. And when my mother was about 45, my father died. Now, many, many years later, I was very fortunate to go to a physical mediumship seance. Actually, I sat with a physical medium for 7 years. And on one wonderful occasion, my father materialized and he came across the room and he kissed me on the forehead. And I said, Dad, are you with Mum? And he said, Of course we're together and we're having a hell of a time. So I just wanted to throw that in. I have absolutely no doubt that my mum and dad, and whenever I go to a medium, it's mum and dad. You know, they're there together, and so I'm absolutely 100% behind everything that you're doing. I've watched your work from afar, and it just blows me away. One thing I wanted to mention is your website, the Red String Society. Would one of you like to briefly talk about that? Because it's a fabulous, fabulous website with great resources. Which one of you would like to talk about that?
So yeah, it's redstringsociety.com. Uh, it has a blog. We've had several people from the group contribute to the blog. There's a lot of me because I'm like the only person who will contribute to it regularly. But there's resources. There's afterlife information. Which is basically distilled from many resources into a statement in general about what we know, generally speaking, what most people seem to encounter and experience when they die. A lot of that is culled from the Leslie Flint information, from Jürgen Jive's explorations, and from other sources. And it's curated to be of the most value to people in our situation who just want to be assured that the people that they love are going to be there and they're going to be able to like interact with them normally. There's links to a lot of other information. We have stuff about signs and synchronicities and how to think, different ways to think about them, to cultivate them, to recognize them, to create a space, physically and psychologically and emotionally to be able to receive these signs. One of the things that we have recurring issues with are periods of sign droughts for people and other people who come on who don't experience signs or don't know how to recognize a sign and continually doubt that what they've received is a sign. Uh, stuff in there about dealing with grief from different perspectives, about how to manage it. We're not advocating that you try to um, hold down the grief or ignore the grief or anything like that. I think grief is far too valuable an experience in this life to try to ignore or avoid. And that it's okay. However long you have grief, that's fine. However you experience that, that's also fine. But if you want to try to alleviate that grief and move towards a less grieving experience here in this life and with your partners, we offer tools on that. So we have a lot. It's like the public face of the group, of the Facebook group, that can also serve people who I have sent that link to people who have like a parent or a child or a friend who died, because there's a lot of information that I think is really good even for them, even though a lot of it really wouldn't apply as romantic relationships, but it's still good information for dealing with these kind of things. So yeah, that's the with the website. Thank you, Lindy. And I want to tell you, I really appreciate that you didn't kick me out of your group your Facebook group early on because I know I was causing some problems there with what I was saying with some people. But I so appreciate that you have been so supportive of all this for all this time. That's one of the things that is just irreplaceable to me. Also, is that the support that you and a few others gave us back in the beginning when it was so difficult to get this message through. Thank you so much.
Thank you, William. Dan, can I call on you to moderate the questions, please?
Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Sherry, you had your hand up first. And you're muted.
I just unmuted. I just want to say that I completely endorsed your work, both of you. It's been my work for many years, but in the field of parent and child loss and working with parents. And the one thing that makes that difference is exactly what you're trying to teach people. I used to say that we have a parental mantra, which was, where is my child and is he or she okay? And I'm sure it applies to soulmates as well. Just because they've passed, we can't let that go. You know, we need to know. And I had many run-ins with the compassionate friends years ago because these groups are very threatened by the things we're speaking about. But it is those who have come our way in opening up and hopefully having some wonderful experiences with signs and so forth. They're not in the same place of grief that so many others who refuse to open that window ever get to. So I just want to say congratulations. I think it's great. I have a book called Lost and Found. It's about connecting with my son in the first 2 years after he passed. And I can only say I think you're totally, totally right on. Please keep it up. That's it.
Mindy, you're up.
Hey, thanks. Oh, let me just put my hand down. Sorry. So, oh God, Mary Beth and William will laugh at me because I was one of the worst people when I came to that group. And it is a group that no one wants to belong to. Okay. Not willingly.
Never.
But I just want to say that, I love both of them very dearly. And William especially has really been a mentor for me over the years. I'm almost 6 years in. And as I shared when we first came on, before they even came on, my husband passed in 2019 very tragically of a suicide death. And I was the one on the blubbering floor for the first 2 years. And it was very difficult. And all I have to say is that the group for me was a lifeline in the beginning. I don't participate as much as I used to because I don't feel like I have to as much as I used to. And because I have other things in my life going on now. I have grandchildren and other things. But the bottom line is I had to do work. It took work. It took research. It took reading. It took watching podcasts. It just took talking to other people who experienced and who went through similar things. And it's never easy. And you know what? I still grieve, and I'm not going to lie. And there are days when I do, and I allow myself to. Am I in the same shape I was in the beginning? No, not at all. I'm way better than I was. But I am very grateful to this group and to people like all of you here who believe. And I just, for myself, I had so many ADCs even after my husband passed almost immediately, but I was in such a bad place that it took me a while to really understand all of it. And I put in the footwork and it took a long time, but I can say today that I am truly grateful for this group and for Mary Beth and William and you, Wendy, and your podcast and everybody else on here who has experienced the loss of somebody that they love so very much. So yes, thank you. I'm so grateful and I'm glad to be here tonight to support William and Mary Beth. They're the best. Thanks.
Thanks, Mindy. Mary Beth, your story about the loss of the cremains brings up a memory of mine. Back in 2007, I lost my partner, Jane. And this is here in Marin County, north of San Francisco, where I still live. And her son and I scattered her ashes off the mountain here, Mount Tamalpais, and we had a beautiful ceremony. And I had a handful of ashes left. What to do with these? So I took half of what was left, and I put it just under this tree over here, the base of this tree. And so my thought was I'd come, and there are benches there where you can sit right under the tree, and that would be a kind of a memorial place for me. So the day after I placed the ashes, we had a storm and a high tide at the same time, and it washed away the ashes. So I can totally relate to that loss, and it's almost funny that we can, I mean, when I pass away, if I want to maintain a relationship with someone, it's with them. Why are they obsessed about my ashes? So, it's psychologically, it's completely understandable, and yet it's also kind of funny, I think. What we project on material things. And I think that, not to be critical of ourselves, it's just how we are as humans. And I'm sure you have heard many, many stories along these lines. So anyway,
And that's absolutely true. But one time after one of my big standard poodles passed and I had her ashes, I put them on Danny's memorial, and I got an EVP asking me to take those ashes off the memorial. And it was 1 a.m. I was so freaked. I ran out and I took them off. And then I sat and asked, my team at some point further on. And what I heard was they're not attached to anything physical anymore. Like the grave sites, the ashes, that's all for us because we're still physical. So the physical still holds a kind of preciousness to us, but to him, it's like that holds us down, We're free of it now. And it really made me think a little bit about the perspective of spirit towards flesh once they've left. I don't think they're attached anymore.
Right, and this brings up, I mean, one of my favorite whipping boys is the semantics around all of this, and how language affects our perception and all. And I'm glad that Mary Beth and William raised the question of, to those on the other side, their perception, certain levels, are physical. And I think if we said this side that their experience is to all intents and purposes physical, I think that would be helpful in folks on this side making better sense of it. Mm. The perception is coming from a different level, coming from a different place. And from that place, the experience is physical. It's not necessarily what we think of as physical, but does it matter? Mm. It's the experience that matters, basically, I think. Nancy, I think you were next.
Yes. Well, I have a funny ashes story to share. And I guess I've been waiting for years for the right moment, and here it is. So it wasn't a partner, it was my father, passed away in December of 2008. And his wife waited until spring, till about March, to bury his ashes at this cemetery. Okay. And so the ashes apparently came in a cardboard box, and inside the cardboard box was a plastic lining, and the ashes were in this plastic lining. So we went out to this cemetery to bury his ashes. Now it's March, the ground is frozen, and it's a windy day. And we don't have a shovel or a tool to dig into the ground to bury the ashes. So here I am. She's opening the box with a knife, and the wind is blowing. The ashes are starting to just blow all over the place, and I'm quickly trying to dig with my fingers in this frozen ground to get his ashes in the ground. And I just started laughing because I heard him laughing at how funny this must have looked. That he said, it doesn't matter. He said, I'm in your heart. I'm not in the ground. I'm not in the ashes. So I just wanted to share that funny story.
Thanks, Nancy. Wonderful. And very much to the point. K and D Vortex. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are.
My name is Kristen, and my husband's name is Daryl. And I found Love After Life. I was trying to think because in the year after he passed, time just ceased to be important to me. But now that when I think back on it, it was probably late 2022 or early 2023 when I found the group. And my husband passed in July of 2022. So it's just been a little over 3 years. August of that year was the 10-year anniversary of our elopement. And in that time, by the inspiration of both my husband and a group of people who understood what I was thinking in Love After Life, I found a local minister and medium who was open to performing an interdimensional marriage. And I thus named our vortex. And we became the K&D vortex after that.
Oh,
In the in the in the experience of marrying him, I had so many visions and was so I don't know, a foot in one world in the other world, obviously. But the minister asked to do a hand fasting ceremony, and so I held both wedding bands in each hand. And when she asked for my husband's vows, I felt those rings press into the palm of my hands, and I practically threw them up. I was so surprised. I was just so surprised that I physically felt them press into the palms of my hands. And I just wanted to share that story because that is something that I never would have imagined myself doing ever. My brain wasn't that big before he passed. My consciousness wasn't that open before he passed. And he just opened a whole world to me. Um, and so I've gotten a lot of support and a lot of friendship through the community. And I am so glad to see them here today and to see all of you all. It's just been it's been a brand new experience. All I can say to anyone else, and I know plenty of people who are struggling with grief on some level or another. But my college roommate lost her husband within the last year, my former college roommate. And I remember checking in on her, and I don't know who wrote these words. It wasn't me, but I did say, just know that it doesn't get any easier, but it is very, very different. And that's all I can say 3 years in is that it's very different. I still have days of weepiness and grief. But I might feel that way if he were here. So it's really hard to say. Anyway, thank you very much.
thank you. Dave, you're up.
Okay, so thank you, Mary Beth and William, for coming and speaking to us. I wrote the question down. I'm going to read it. Do you have people in your group that have loving relationships with their deceased spouses like you two? They also have a new girlfriend or boyfriend, or spouses have remarried again on this earth, so they have two relationships.
So we really felt that we bring no judgment to people who want to repartner, and that's fine if they do. And we have had people in our group who thought that they didn't want to, and then along the way changed their mind and things like that. But our group is really, really set up for people who want to exclusively continue a monogamous relationship with their partner or spouse who passed.
Mhm.
So that's what the whole thing is centered on. So we don't discuss or entertain. I don't know. I haven't repartnered. I have no intention of repartnering. I don't want to repartner. So I'm sure that when you do well, I should say this. Sometimes I go in the grief groups. I'm in the middle of writing a book. And so sometimes I go on the grief groups just to kind of touch base with people who are still grieving. And a lot of times when people repartner, they have challenges that are unique to that situation. But our group does not address those at all. We're just for people who, like I said, just for people who want to remain with their exclusively in love and devoted to their partner. And interesting that you bring that up, because one of the difficulties that some of the people in our group have sometimes is when they go for medium readings. And we always say, well, I don't think William's ever been for a medium reading. No, but I've had lovely medium readings, and even sometimes, even with the best mediums, I always say that mediumship is an uneven art, because the medium brings their own sensibility and proclivities to the situation. And I remember I had a medium reading in person with the great Tony Stockwell. And I was so thrilled to do it. I'm a big fan of Tony. I think he's a very well-developed medium. He takes his work seriously, very respected. And he gave me a beautiful reading. And he said to me, one of the first things he said is, you and your husband share a Disney-like romance. And that was true. But then toward the end of it, he said, I have to tell you, I'm sorry to say, I see no other love in your future. Mm-hmm. And I said, great, that's great. But I'm sure that Tony Stockwell, who I love and admire to the moon and back, I'm sure that he felt that might be sad information for me, because many people do want to see new love in their life, and they do want to go on and repartner. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not for me. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I'll say that one of the reasons that we don't allow so we don't really allow that kind of thing is because we had a situation come up where a person had repartnered, and then the woman died, and then their partner found their texts and submissions to this group, and it devastated him because he wasn't her true love or anything. And so that was a whole ordeal. Mm-hmm. And so what happens in this group, and we've had several members, is that they come on with the intention and they're sincere about it. And then, whatever happens, they meet somebody or whatever, and they decide to go a different route. And then they just quietly leave the group, or they might stay in the group. It's not like we police the matter. We're not like a cult or anything, but they may quietly leave the group and, go on with their lives. So it's, if we can be a bridge to that, that if they're going to use us for a bridge to that, that's fine. If we can help them now by assuring them that there is an afterlife and their partner is there, and then sometime down the road, maybe their partner tells them, or they just decide or whatever to move on, that's fine. If we can help during the interim process, that's great. But there's other groups that deal with that situation of allowing or being embracing of that thing in their group of repartnering. So one of the things that we didn't want to get into is that we didn't want to become a date site for people looking for another partner. We didn't want to get into that. And then you have the natural, what we have found is a natural tension, a psychological tension between people who are committed to their partners and then people who are looking or open to having another partner. There is just like an emotional, psychological tension in there that can cause disruption and some bad things. So we sort of keep it on this keel over the process of learning over 8 years what it takes to keep this a very supportive and very psychologically, it's like a psychological world of a family, that we all live in this family, and it's very supportive to have this, of people who see this your way of accepting, this way of doing things in particular. It's very helpful to people. Okay. Also, go ahead. I'm going to comment about something else in a little bit. Go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks for your answers, both of you.
If I may just add to what William was saying, in the beginning, we really had no rules about any of this. But what we found when William said that there's a tension came to the surface, what would happen is that people who there were people who were devoted only, singularly to their person who passed. And then there were other people who would repartner or had repartnered even. And there would be the tension that would come up is that the people who were totally devoted to their one partner would say, well, you must not have had experienced soul connection, because if you did, you would never want to repartner. And the repartnering people would say, you don't know anything about my life, and you don't know anything about how I feel, and I can do this, and I can feel. And we're like, whoa, because we really didn't want, that sort of tension to erupt in the group. And so that's why we narrowed our focus even more.
Yes. Well, I'm 5 days into this with Richard having passed, and many of you know Richard, and he is a deeply spiritual man, and we both shared this knowing that we are more than just this physical form, that we are spirit, that we are these bigger selves. And I'm so grateful that for the year that we were together every morning, we really anchored in that connection. We call it just the oneness, and, being in silence and really feeling more of just that connection with source, with the divine. And we would just feel this energy of just being in oneness. And I know I'm just speaking for him, because that was such a powerful foundation, just being in that silence. And so I have noticed these past 5 days, people, how are you doing? How you're doing? And I say, like, well, I feel like I'm the ocean, because underneath this event that happened, there is like this real stillness and this calm. And when I'm there, Richard's there. That's where we are. And then a wave comes, and I could be like a huge wave, and the grief, and I just let it roll through me. And then I'm just right back into that place of stillness. And that's a place where Richard and I really cultivated that together. And I find when I'm there, he's there. And so in the mornings, I get up just like we have done every morning for over a year, of just sitting, and he's just there. We're in the silence, where I'm already feeling the his messages. And I know he wanted me to communicate that we just, yes. And I know another wave came through, and it came through before I got on this call, because I was watching our video and us singing our songs. And I know that form is not there, but I know that we still have this relationship. It's just in a different form. And so I just wanted to share that. I find myself almost comforting people, from letting them know that I still feel that connection with Richard and always will, and that love goes beyond just our form. It's so much larger. And I remember when I would go to sleep at night, just this other night, and I would just start to, miss him. And then I could almost hear Richard's voice say, what lens are you looking through? Are you looking through the lens of separation? Or what about that lens of oneness, that connection with God? Once you look through that lens, and the moment I did, it was just like, and he was there. So I feel like I'm learning to really navigate more from being so centered around this to expanding, just like he would have said. He was all about the expanding selves and these soul groups, everything, William, that I know in your group you may not want people to go to, but that was Richard, and he wrote a book about that, and we really shared that. And I'm finding, wow, Richard has the opportunity now. He taught it. Now the teacher has become the teaching. And if you guys know, some of you sat in his presentation and stuff, the teacher is now the teaching. And it's like, oh my goodness, we've talked, we believe these things. We believe about connection, oneness with source. Now we get to live it. Now we're actually becoming, living, walking our talk. And so it's been yeah, it's been very interesting, and just thank you for letting me share that experience.
Thanks so much, Kim. William?
Yeah, Kim, it's not so much that I wouldn't want them to. It's that I don't, I personally and as a group we don't promote, but people are free to discuss it and express themselves because we understand everybody has their own individual path and their relationships are all unique. And we try to allow as much leeway as possible for them to be in our group and be able to say what they want to say and have support for it.
Yeah.
You know, so I totally support everything you're saying. That it may not be my path, but
Right.
my path works for me. So Irene and it may help some others. I tell people in the group all the time, feel free to disagree and throw tomatoes at me. It's fine. You know, I'm not laying down any laws here. I'm just providing my experience. One of the things I wanted to address, Daniel, because I'm an extreme contrarian, is there's a reason that I always use the word physical. Okay. And that is this, is that I am not ceding that word to the materialists. I am not going to let them tell me what word I can or can't use. I'm not going to let spiritualists tell me what word I should use. And when I use any other word or I hedge on the idea of physicality, it brings up some weird feelings in me and other people in the group. Now, Mary Beth likes using the word solid, not so much physical, but it's like I've staked my flag on this word. Is that from what I can tell and from what I've read, I mean, I don't know how many people in the Leslie Flint tapes and from other sources who die and don't realize they're dead because they experience no real difference, right? They just don't know how they got to where they got to. They're walking around, they have arms and legs, they see other people, they see the trees and the grass, and they nothing is jogging their mind to think I'm someplace different, you know, just fundamentally different than where I was. I've had several astral projection experiences myself. In one, I was fortunate enough to visit with my wife for 15 minutes. It was indistinguishable from this world. It was completely solid, completely real, completely physical. I could hear her voice. I could see details. I could look around the room I was in. I felt the carpet. I looked at the carpet. I felt the couch that I was sitting on. It was completely physical and real. And the way I look at it is that materialism is wrong. This is not a material world. Okay, this is the same, in many regards, the same kind of world. It exists along the same spectrum of worlds that the afterlife exists in. Okay, it's not like it's not like this world is fundamentally different. It has a few differences and a few unique qualities, but it's not fundamentally different. So no, I like to, people find it comforting. Like when I die, if all I have is a little shack and Irene and I are living it and we're spending our time cooking dinner, you know, walking out on the beach, and every night we tune into Wheel of Fortune with an eternally young Pat Sajak and Vanna White and watch Wheel of Fortune. and we can kiss and make love and you know, go for walks and go for a drive, go to a restaurant, you know, go watch a movie or whatever. That's all I want out of the afterlife. That's all I want out of it. And so I like to assure people that if that's all you want out of it, if that is your thought, I was living in heaven on earth with my wife for about 27 years here. Okay. And and the only thing I would want is that it's physical. And if there's some perks, you know, like I can think about a plate of spaghetti and there it appears and I can eat that plate of spaghetti, or, you know, as long as I'm not getting, you know, disease ridden or old, or I'm not losing my teeth, or, you know, my eyesight is restored and I don't have to worry about losing my hair. Those are some perks that would be great. But I think that what we find is that a lot of people just want what they had. That's all they want. They just want to be assured that they can have what they had here and can continue with that. And so that's why I don't see those words. That's why I don't dance around those words. I want to use those words because uh, it it I don't want them to feel any type of. You mean it's not really physical? I mean, what are you talking about? It's not really this or that. So that's why I insist on using those words. I don't insist everybody else use them, but that's why I insist on them.
Well, thanks, William. That's very clear, and I totally relate to where you're coming from with this, regardless of any differences of language. Language is just words, but it's true. We invest a lot of our sense of reality in them, and it's important that we be true to ourselves when we use it, the language we use. Mary Beth, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. I just wanted to speak to something that Kim said, which spoke to my heart. And I'm not sure. I didn't copy down exactly the words, Kim, but to paraphrase, you were saying that you were upset and crying, and then you sort of sensed your husband saying, which lens do you want to look at this through, the lens of loss or the lens of love? And that reminded me of something that really kind of got me through. Especially in the beginning when my husband passed, and again, fan of Abraham. And Abraham, through Esther Hicks, said that when Jerry, her husband, died, that she grieved. I remember thinking when Jerry Hicks died, and I've met Esther and Jerry in person. I've seen them in person. I took Paul to a Abraham workshop, so I'm a very big fan. And when Jerry passed, I remember thinking, like an idiot, oh, well, she must not have any grief at all because she knows everything about, she knows 100% for sure. She has no doubts and fears that he died. And then I listened to a recording from Abraham, and Abraham was speaking about Esther and said that she grieved heavily for a full year, even though for decades they were delivering the message. She in particular was channeling the message that there is no death and that we go on and that we meet up with our dearest loved one. So how was it that she grieved? I was like, whoa, if Esther Hicks is grieving, what chance do I have? But then Abraham said Abraham is speaking through Esther, saying that Esther heard from Abraham a message, and the message was, stop looking for Jerry where he was and start looking for him where he is. And that to me was so profound. And so I tried really hard. William talks about the psychology of all this. I try really hard. I don't wish Paul back in his physical. A lot of our members would say, oh, if they only would come back. I never wish Paul back. I didn't say I lost him. I was very careful about how I spoke about him. Abraham would say, you didn't lose your most beloved. They're with you more than ever before. And so I clung to those words and I repeated them in my head and I believed them. And then when I got to the Annie Nanji and the Leslie Flint recordings and did a deep dive on that was really even more reinforcing. And another big resource that I loved out of the millions, I think I estimated I read about 200 books in the beginning, some better than others. But I love the work of Stuart Edward White, who wrote the Betty book and the Unobstructed Universe. And in his work, his wife was the metaphysical one, in case you're not familiar with that. And then she died, and another friend of theirs channeled Betty back to him. And she said the same. She said that their world, Betty said her world on the other side, has fluidity and solidity. And I love that. It was like I'm cool with, if things are somewhat familiar and somewhat different, that's good. I just didn't want the whole thing to be, completely so foreign to me that it was uncomfortable and unhappy and I couldn't find Paul. Or in the future, I couldn't find my kids or my other loved ones. So I targeted in on those resources, the reliable resources that assured me that that I would be able to be in Paul's arms again. And that's what I envision when I do visualizations. I envision that dream has come true and once again we're reunited for forever. So that's what I do. Thank you.
I want to just briefly, one of the things that always fascinates me is when folks can transition from one side to the other and back. For example, excuse me, we have materializations, physical materializations of people from the other side. I personally met someone years ago who I later found out had been dead for 2 years. And he was perfectly physical, perfectly ordinary. I would never, ever have realized that this guy was anything other than an ordinary human being. Sometimes there's this scene behind me. There's a path that goes along this creek for, I take a mile and a half or so walk every day back and forth on this creek. And occasionally I will feel Jane walking beside me. And the first time that happened, I put my hand down as I would if she were walking beside me, and I felt the energy of her hand. And the funny thing about it was at a certain point, she wanted to turn back and go the other way. It was very clear. So I followed that urge, went back the other way. And then she stopped. And I looked down at the water, and there was a bird, which was her favorite bird of all time. It's called a night heron, which does not exist in this area of the creek. It lives about 2 miles up the road. I've never seen it in this area. But in this particular instance, apparently Jane had sensed it was there and brought me to it. And I had a good laugh at that, and I thanked her for it. So I had a few experiences like that. But that's, the transitioning between that world of reality, solidity, whatever you want to call it, and this one, it's not as hard a boundary, not as absolutely hard a boundary as we might imagine. So, and I was wondering if both of you guys have had that experience, but I want to give Mindy a chance because she's had her hand up for a bit. Mindy, you're on.
Yeah, I'll make it quick because I know it's going over time. But first of all, night herons are one of my favorite. When you said that, they're absolutely beautiful. And I have seen them in the back of my yard before I moved to this house, and also in Florida where my family, my brother and sister live. They are beautiful. And the first reading I ever had, when Keith first passed, literally right before the reading, I looked out the back window, and the house behind me directly, there was a pond directly behind my home, was a big gray heron standing on the roof, just staring into my window. And that was the first experience I had with my first reading, which amazed me because I'd never seen that in all the years I lived there. And feathers and birds have been a big thing for my husband. And I also physically have been able to feel him since the very beginning. I can physically feel him. But I just wanted to address very quickly, and I'll let you guys go because I know it's getting late. Kim, I love what you said. Thank you for that. I wish my husband and I would have talked more about those things before, over the years that we were together. I knew him for over 30 years, but we were together for 16. And the thing is that he would make me watch movies, and I see it now today, because maybe he didn't know, but his soul knew. But he would always make me watch movies with him, like City of Angels, Phenomena, Frequency, movies that all had to do with, the phenomena of the afterlife and all that. And now, like, I didn't understand it then, but I definitely do now. So maybe he didn't even know. So, and the one thing I did tell him is if anything ever happened to him, I would always wear his wedding ring around my neck on a chain, which I do whenever I leave this house. So yeah, so I love that. And that was amazing. And thank you, everybody. I love what everybody's had to say tonight. And it feels good. It's not always great. Oh, I love that. I see it. It's beautiful. I have it. It's in my other room. I don't have it on right now. But like I said, it's not the greatest group to belong to, but I think like William and Mary Beth, I think it's William that always said, we've already won the lottery. And that's what I've tried to cling to all these years. is that we've already won the lottery, and our day will come and our paradise will come eventually. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. It's been beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Mindy. William?
Yeah, so you were talking about that experience that you had in the group. The people have reported. One of the great things about this group is that people report their experiences, and we have had all kinds of experiences in this group, and some of them are just mind-blowingly phenomenal. From physically interacting with one of our members. We used to do this thing in the group where we would visualize that we were all on a cruise liner in the astral, and we would meet up and have like a costume ball or some other type of event, and then we come back and compare notes, and we would often come back with very specific information regarding how we saw them and their partners. We've had and during that time, one of the members had a 3 or 4 hour full astral projection visitation with their partner, and where they were just walking around the ship, leaving the ship on the gangplank, walking up and down the beach, walking up into the little village area that was just behind it, the little town, doing some stuff there. It was a phenomenal experience. We have had cross-personal signs where people would come on and either post a picture or talk about it and realize, okay, that's a sign for this person. Or in one case, this is a personal experience. The person who gave this to me might still be here. One of the members said that she saw Irene. I believe this was in a dream, and where Irene, my wife, told her, I could feel, I could tell how much William loves me just by him placing his hand on my arm. And so that was extremely meaningful to me, because she could have said by holding, my hand or by touching me or, whatever. But when she was sick with breast cancer before she died, she had so much pain and so much discomfort. I would fall asleep. I couldn't hold her really, as she had trouble breathing. She had a cannula and was breathing through the tubes, and she had to be in a very particular position to not have a panic attack about her difficulty of breathing. So I would fall asleep with my hand on her upper arm, on her bare upper arm, because that was the only place that I could really touch her and it not be painful or uncomfortable for her. So, so that was an extremely meaningful sign to me, a communication from my wife. And I've had other experiences. Mindy right here had an experience of talking to Irene in a dream, and she has had some very vivid visitation dreams where Irene, she was talking to Irene, and she asked Irene, what's the afterlife like? And Irene kind of looked off and said, it's very shiny. And that's a that was just between me and Irene up to that point. That was an inside joke between me and Irene, that she could see something shiny and become completely distracted. So she would we might be talking about something in a store, and then she just starts going off in a direction. And she says, oh, look, something shiny. And so she'd have to go over to see what it was. And that was our inside joke. So her saying that to Mindy was very meaningful to me. So there have been many situations where we have had cross-personal signs being delivered to us by members in the group. We've had several members of the group get mediumship readings that didn't know about the group, that talked about the group, even though the medium didn't know about it, and that our partners were gathered together, helping us get through this, helping each other and helping us, and helping in delivering signs and in doing this, and that they were, they're very happy and proud of us for doing this, really. And so it's very meaningful to them that we're doing this. And so, yeah, so we have had an amazing amount of very significant experiences. We've had phenomena occur in our Zoom groups in the past that are just completely inexplicable, that were very meaningful to people. So, things that appear, things that lights doing very bizarre things. At one point, there was a wood flute playing that was very meaningful to one of the people there. So that was, yeah, it's been a phenomenal experience running that group. Thank you.
Regina, you have been very, very quiet today. And next week, we have the Cosmic Voices team again. That's Regina, Jeannie, and Daniel. Regina and Jeannie are superb mediums and channelers, and they have had face-to-face contact with their spirit friends over 40 years now, I think. Some of them have been appearing in Regina's kitchen. Regina, would you like to just say hello and tell
Hello,
everybody what you
everyone.
do?
I'm looking forward. It was a wonderful presentation, William and Mary Beth. It was just delightful to listen to all of your stories and what led you to reaching out. I think the one thing that I hope that everybody is aware of is that sometimes when we feel grief, it is also the entity on the other side who's feeling a bit sad because they're not with you, or they didn't get to say goodbye to everybody. And actually, I'm really was feeling that a lot today with Richard. And he was quite present here, Kim. He still is, obviously, but he's very present. And he said, Wendy, I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye. And he's really extending his gratefulness and gratitude beyond means for what this group did for him as well. And he was a faithful follower. And if he missed it, he would watch the YouTubes. So he really enjoyed what he was learning through all of this. But he has just been so present. He keeps telling me, tell him. And I didn't want to interrupt, so I apologize. But I'm just thrilled to know that he's really pleased, Kim, with you. And he said, but some of those waves you're feeling are his. And they just come and go just like yours. And it's just part of the growth process. He goes, I wasn't expecting them. And he's, a lot of times we don't talk about that, but they do have their very emotional portion of them that comes and goes too. So he just wants you to know that some of those waves are his. And because the two of you are so close together, you're obviously going to feel them. And so it gets kind of compounded, but he's not sad. He's just, it's done. It's done. And so he's just really wanted to say thank you to everybody in this group, how much it brought to him and how fulfilled he felt. And he didn't feel like he was an odd man out ever in this group. He always felt very secure and safe, and he could speak about anything or listen, and he can pick and choose, but it also gave him great references. So he really wants to extend his gratitude to you, Wendy, and all of those forward. So that's, and as far as coming in next week, Jean and I and Dan, we're going to be meeting on Zoom this week to go over the finer details of it. But Jeannie would like to be speaking on, we've titled it, we've got a theme, A Medicine Walk with the Ancient Ones. So we're going to talk a little bit about healing land trauma, acknowledging the land, acknowledging its history, and what it means, more than just. It's about healing the energy of the land. Sometimes you walk on property or land and you just feel real odd, something strange here, but you don't know any of the history. So we're going to just talk a little bit about that, and then we'd like people who have had these experiences to come forward with their stories, because that's really important that we get other people's angles, other people's experiences, and their interactions with the land. And sometimes when we're walking the land, we experience quite significant spirits, and we're surprised. So bring your stories and your conversation and an open mind, and that's all. That's all.
Thank you, Regina. That's wonderful, and I'm sure we've all been feeling that we've got a lot of people in the spirit gallery with us today.
You certainly do. When you said that at the beginning.
We have, and Richard, it's just lovely to have you with us. You'll always be with us, and there are no goodbyes for people on the same wavelength. So we know very much that how happy you must be, and also the mixed feelings you must have. So we wish you a very, very happy settling in period, and I'm hoping you'll see our friend Karen.
Oh, they have. She's here too. But Richard is asking for his favorite meal, Kim. So he says, when you have time. So he knows it hasn't been long, but he says, 2 weeks in the ICU first didn't help. So he says, I've been kind of missing it. So anyway, he's asking for, and they can taste through your taste. That's how they taste. So he will be able to experience that through your taste buds, because he's just going to be right there at the table with you. So just so you know, Kim.
Okay, that's lovely.
Wonderful.
Hyacinth, did you want to come in on this?
I just want to tell a funny little story. When my husband died, it was 32 years ago. Going home from the hospital, I said, "Well, you've gone now. I know you're around and you're alive." And I told him, "But help me if you can, but don't get into trouble just because you want to help me." And so this was it. And at the funeral, I was saying, "You see how many people are here? You didn't know there would be so many people," and so forth. And I said, "Oh, stop showing off. Just because you can fly, nobody can see you anyway. So just come and sit beside me and hold my hand and behave yourself." And it was like this. My friends afterwards said, "Something is wrong because we are crying and you are not." And I said, "So what's there to cry for?" And they thought, "Aha, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah." What's it? Yeah, yeah. And so it went out. It was really, really just amazing. And he had a very good sense of humor. So this was just unbelievable. Really good. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful, Hyacinth. I'm sure you must have some wonderful stories, and we hope that our next community gathering is on August 31st. So if anybody would like to bring their stories along to that, we'd love to hear them. People who've come today to honor Mary Beth and William, you're very welcome to come back. We're here every Sunday at this time, and we'd love to have you join us for all of the things that we have in common. So on that note, I think we will finish. Daniel, do you have anything? Would you like to thank our speakers on our behalf?
Wow. Certainly, if I can find my voice. Yes.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
No, it's okay. It's a wonderful 2 hours. And you've both I think enriched all of us. I mean, we've all had, I think, our experience of losing loved ones, but look, you guys are taking it to another dimension in a very, very beautiful way. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And thank you, Mary Beth and William. Please keep in touch with us. Anything we can publicize on your behalf, we'd be very happy to do so. William, what are the names of your books so that people can find them?
Love After Life. That was the first one. Forbidden That was the second one. And Happily Ever After is the third one by William Murray, Murray.
What great names. What great names.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I may for a moment, speaking of books, I recently discovered a wonderful book. It had been on my bookshelves for years, but I hadn't really read it. And I grabbed it and started reading it last week, and it's wonderful. It's called The Beginner's Guide for the Recently Deceased. And it's a how-to manual for crossing to the other side. And here, if the camera will read it properly. And the author is David Staume, Staume. It's written about 20 years ago. And it's written with wit and humor and a really kind of healthy perspective and positive energy. So it's another one for the book list. And I'm just jazzed by reading it. It's great fun.